So App Inventor, also known as MIT App Inventor, is a tool that's used in order to create Android apps. Now, many of you might be thinking, well, I have an iPhone and I don't have an Android device. Why would I want to make Android apps? Well, we're going to eventually get to making iPhone apps, but a large percentage of Europe use Android devices, and increasingly more in the United States as well. I actually use an Android device, and that's just my personal preference. But by learning how to create apps for both Android devices and Apple devices, iOS devices as well, you are learning how to create the two types that are very common. Now, whenever you write an app for an Android device, it will not work on an iOS device, and vice versa, where if you write an iOS app, you're going to have to also write one for an Android device as well, which is time consuming, knowing that you're going to have to write apps for both platforms. Very few people choose just to stick to one and only write it for Android devices or only write it for iOS devices, because what happens is you're really alienating a large percentage of possible downloads. So we're eventually going to learn how to do both. First, we're going to start off with App Inventor, which allows you to create apps for Android devices. So, like I said, even if you don't have an Android device, there's a way to test your app out on App Inventor, and you don't need an Android device in order to actually test it. Now, if you have an Android device, that would be preferred. If you do not, then we have an emulator that we can download eventually as well. So I wouldn't worry about it either way. But App Inventor was created by MIT, and it is a block-based program which allows you to write these apps. So block-based means that instead of typing code out, we're actually going to be putting these blocks together like puzzle pieces. So we're going to go ahead and start off, and we're going to click on Create Apps. All right, so it already recognizes that I am logged in to my my Google account here. So if I were to click over here, and let's just say I sign out, right? And let's say I'm clicking on Create Apps for the first time, like many of you guys are. If I click on Create Apps, I'll just refresh the page here. If I click on Create Apps, it's going to ask me to log into my account, and it's going to ask you to log into a Google account. So you would pick which Google account you would like to add to it. And now I'm able to look through the different projects I've created in the past. You guys, most likely, if you've never used App Inventor before, you'll be starting a new project and moving from there. But this is just an example of an old app that I had just been playing around with. But if you click on My Projects up here, and you click on Start New Project, and we'll just call this Example App. All one word. Okay, if you leave a space, this pops up. So if I click here and type a space, project names cannot contain spaces. So I'm just going to say Example App, and I'm going to say OK. All right, so now that I'm in, this is where I'm going to be writing, creating my app and being able to put blocks together. So I'm going to go ahead and cut this video off, and I will see you in the next video.